And we want just to drill deeper this with our panelists today to see where this is heading so far. And for the longest time, we've been toying and froing on this issue, and it seems we never come to a conclusive end. And we do not know why they keep on promising, and also they flinch also on their promises as well. Let's just begin from the recent development with this, because we are given to understand it is the opposition parties. It is not just Riek Machar. I don't know which other opposition parties, but you are the experts who can tell me this morning so far. Where are we headed with this? Let's just begin with you, Dr. Khaninje.
Now, among the parties that were prominent in refusing to sign the deal, of course, was the main party, Riek Machar. And even though some of the wording, especially in the report, has said opposition parties, it has been largely Riek Machar. And in the last couple hours, while you guys were asleep, he actually agreed to sign the draft.
But do we have any verified information on this?
Yes, exactly. It's been sent out there. It's not exactly been published, but the information is out there. He has agreed to sign the peace deal. And some of the sticking points were with regard to the transition arrangement, the states and how they're going to apportion those positions. Remember, it's not just the ministerial and cabinet positions alone. It is countrywide, the national positions. And so Machar claimed that the mediators had not consulted with him when they were drafting the final agreement. And so he had raised it, but they were not exactly worked on. So especially the Sudanese mediators, who now went back to work with him and iron out the details. And I think today, later on, we should be able to get complete details of the final agreement between the warring parties in South Sudan.
Dr. Mustafa.
Yeah, Dibal, I think it's a positive move that Riek Machar and the opposition are going to sign or have signed the details of the peace agreement. But the fact that you still have this back and forth is still an indicator that there is no trust. There is both parties, Salva Kiir and Riek Machar, are still, particularly those two, are still operating under a difficult cloud of mistrust, distrust, and it's going to be very difficult for South Sudan to see how the peace deal is going to be enacted and how it's going to be implemented in the context of distrust and mistrust, particularly between those two leaders. And it's up to the South Sudanese people. And again, we call on the leaders of South Sudan, particularly Salva Kiir and Riek Machar, to exercise statesmanship and help in I'm sure they've mentored many young leaders, and have those young leaders come and help and take our position so that they can continue to advise the younger generation in South Sudan to push that country forward.
All right, Ambassador.
The process for peacemaking is as important as the outcome document. And what has always been a challenge is to get brokers of peace who are seen to be neutral, but also who are not seen to be leaning in any direction. For historical or whatever. And to me, this is the challenge I've always had with the South Sudan peace process, because the regional leaders who have taken this task at hand are doing a good job, yes, but they are interested parties in many ways. They should have had really a neutral party doing this right from the beginning. Because having this peace process in Khartoum, somebody will always see something else. In fact, if you remember, they were supposed to more or less go to Uganda, come to Kenya, and that has not happened. And they seem to be now stuck in Khartoum. Well and good. I have no problem with Khartoum, but the problem then you see in the long run is if this fails, then some leaders will then jeopardize that process, because there will be something in it they will not agree with it. And that is where the problem is going to be. So what I would suggest here is let's let's for goodness sake appeal to the two protagonists that the people of South Sudan cannot continue to suffer this way. Otherwise, as we have said before, I think it's important for the two to step aside and leave a process that will bring new leaders to this deal. Otherwise, and we have said it before, the two are not going to be easily agreed.
All right. Professor Naomi Damba.
Dubal, what is clear from the beginning and among these people is not about the country. It's about these cows which has been slaughtered, and how much meat can I get out of it. That's the issue, and so long as that is the focus, they're not going to go anywhere in terms of development. So there has to be the next process, next evolution, to have a new group of leaders, like my friend Ambassador just said. These people cannot lead the country. They're going to continue to fight one way or another.
All right. Let's just hear from Irungu Houghton.
Leadership always has three choices. I think the first is lead, the second is follow, and the third one step aside. And I think what the panel has said so far is that really we look forward to a time when the agreement is signed and that it is implemented. And the hope that we have, I think, in many ways is that the agreement is not just about power sharing, but really goes to the heart of the inequalities, the bad governance that we've seen in South Sudan. And in particular, I think one of the costs of a delayed agreement is the languishing in prisons and in various detention centers of scores of political prisoners, people who have tried through their conscience to provide leadership in the absence of the leadership that has been there, and have found themselves in the detention. And I just want to bring up the case of Peter Biar Ajak again, because it's now 32 days since he's been detained. Family members are saying that it's causing a tremendous toll on his family. He has two children, a 5-year-old and an 18-month baby. Family members have had to go back and forth between Juba and Nairobi to find out what's happening, to see him. And as we speak now, there is no formal prosecution of Peter in any Juba court. And I think for many of us who know Peter, once again, we are struck by delays on the power sharing side, but also delays on the release of Peter and many other people in South Sudan. So I just want to say, and I hope we are not taking this too far, but I think we need to actually say this. It's time to free Peter Biar Ajak now. And the hashtag free, I can't read backwards, but Peter Ajak. Many of us have signed the petition. I think it's now reached 65,000 people. But if you've not signed this and you're watching this, please, my request is on behalf of the family, on behalf of the nation of South Sudan, please sign this and make sure that we can bring Peter back to his family.
Yes, and of course, if you have access to, of course, the internet, we'll share with you that particular link that you can sign the petition as well. Peter has been very vocal as far as the peace process in South Sudan is concerned, and we, as fellow panelists here, your panelists and the hosts as well, we feel aggrieved that yes, up to now nothing has actually happened to Peter Biar Ajak. It's 1 month, and the family is also suffering. You just heard that yes, there's an 18-month-old baby who needs the father, but he's still in the slumbers. So as far as also the peace deal is concerned with this, can we have also people who have been put in the slumbers and fairly also given justice as well? But do you think finally, if Riek Machar has agreed to sign on this particular peace deal, this will be the ultimate, what should I say, the ultimate action as far as the peace deal is concerned?
Dibal, peacemaking is not an event, it's a process. There are going to be fissures, there are going to be failings here and there, there are going to be disagreements, frankly speaking. Especially when the implementation starts. Some people are going to discover things they should have raised in the process. And we're still going to expect that South Sudan needs to face some challenges, not least because it appears as if it's an elite pacting thing. It's being shared just among, you know, the conflictants in South Sudan. And a great majority of South Sudanese in the civil society and the like have been left out. So over time, unless that dynamic is changed and we move away from sharing the power between the political leaders and actually sharing the power that addresses the economics and the politics and, you know, the social well-being of South Sudanese, it's still going to be a challenge. But this is a good start. Compared to previous peace agreements, I think there's a fundamental shift to durability when you look at the terms and some of the contents of the peace agreement. So we are hopeful, but we're not out of the woods yet in as far as South Sudan is concerned.
And on Peter, maybe just to support what Irungu Hito is saying?
On Peter.
Oh, on Peter. You know, for those of you who watch this show, and, you know, Kenyans and South Sudanese who live in this country in large numbers, in this city, they are in large numbers, Peter is a real South Sudanese patriot. He's, once I referred to him as an equal opportunity critic, meaning he does not exactly favor one side or the other, but his kind of criticism tends to be constructive. He's done a lot to actually advance the cause of South Sudan. It's not just regionally, but internationally. There are lots of forums that Peter speaks about South Sudanese in a way that very few people out there actually can. Not to mention, he's the first Cambridge PhD from South Sudan. You know, you would expect the country to be very proud of him. And we very saddened on this panel, and a lot of us sometimes go to bed, you know, really wondering what is likely to happen to Peter. And one thing we are asking the government of South Sudan is to do the right thing and release Peter, or at least present him to court and charge him accordingly, so we know exactly what he has done and find a way of getting him out. Because at this stage, this is unsustainable, and especially at the time when the South Sudanese are signing a peace agreement that promises to give peace to South Sudan, when you're busy locking out other people that you perceive to be either your challengers, your opponents to your ideas. I think the South Sudanese government should do the right thing, and what I'm hoping is our Ministry of Foreign Affairs should appeal to the South Sudanese government to actually release Peter Biar Ajak.
All right. Dr. Mustafa.
Yeah, Dibal, conflict transformation is a process, painstakingly slow, and it's going to take time for South Sudan to address the challenges that they've been going through. And to address the challenges, you know, there is an analogy we normally use in conflict a resolution or transformation, peeling the onion. When you're peeling the onion to get to the core of what you need, it's teary. It's if you put it close to your face, you're going to, you know, feel the fumes. It's not an easy process. It calls for leadership, statesmanship. It calls for a lot of things. South Sudanese people are going to have to agree and know that they are not going to have everything, and it starts with the belligerents, the main belligerents, the leaders themselves that are fighting one another. And I haven't seen the details of the recent agreement, but if it does not have a clause on how perhaps Salva Kiir and Riek Machar are going to exit the scene, elections, further democratization of the Southern Sudanese people, then it's going to be hard. The other thing that I have to mention here is the trauma that the people of South Sudan have had to undergo over 50 years. Now, that in particular is also causing the problem, that there's not been trauma healing in South Sudan. Is something that you see repeatedly coming up and rearing its ugly head, that when people in South Sudan disagree, even over very flimsy reasons and issues, they resort to guns and fighting and killing one another because of trauma. We need to work with the people of South Sudan. The regional countries need to put their interests aside and work with the people of South Sudan to get back the peace, but the buck stops with Salva Kiir and Riek Machar.
Jabbar, can I jump in there? Just because there's something that occurred to me actually that wasn't in my mind. In 1994, I attended the Pan-African Congress in Kampala. I was a bit younger then, and just as an anecdote, I sold daily newspapers to now Presidents Kagame, Museveni, the late John Garang. In fact, he still owes me money for a newspaper that I sold him. I think also there was a younger Afawaki from Eritrea. So I was part of an editorial team that was doing the conference newsletter. And at that time, I was very conscious of the fact that this was the emerging leadership across Africa. I think even J.J. Rawlings was part of that group at that point. There is a link between Bobby Wine, Peter Biar Ajak, and also Diane Rwigara, the presidential candidate from Rwanda.
Yes.
That I think we need to draw as an interesting link. These are young people. They are taking up, very ambitious political projects. They seek to serve their countries. And in all the three cases, fortunately for Bobby Wine, we saw that he received bail and has now sought medical attention. And I think we can congratulate all the people from the region that basically prevailed on the Ugandan government to essentially come back to the rule of law and offer bail to Bobby. I think the thing that's interesting for me is how do the leadership begin to see transition from themselves to the next generation? And what we know from places like Zimbabwe is that where the leadership does not see their transition and does not prepare effectively for it, it doesn't go well. It doesn't go well. And I think this linkage between Diane, Bobby Wine, and Peter is an important one for us to draw at a time like this.
Right, and there on your screen, of course, you have the web page. This is change.org, Freedom for Peter Biar Ajak. So far, actually, that particular petition has risen to 70,316. It's still rising. So
those are AM Live viewers, I think. Huh?
Yeah.
It wasn't that this morning.
Yes, please, AM Live. If you're watching this morning, please, you can sign the petition. You can head over to change.org and just sign in there. Of course, you can put in all your details there. And then you can sign over here so that at least this can go to 100,000, which is the targeted number. And of course, you can read about Peter Biar Ajak. He's here, was arrested in South Sudan on July the 28th. Peter is a youth advocate for peace and a friend and inspiration to many who know him around the world. He's currently being held without charge at the notorious South Sudanese prison known as the Blue House. His friends at universities, human rights institutions, media organizations, and other around the world are calling for his release. And it continues on and on. It says Peter's arrest comes amid a worrying trend in arbitrary detentions due to a crackdown on freedom of expression by the South Sudanese government. Amnesty International reports numerous reasons to arrest without charges. This goes against South Sudan's constitution, which states no one can be held without charge for more than 24 hours. And you can follow all that particular story there. I cannot be able to read all of this. And it's just good to note that, yes, his inspiration story was recognized when he became an Atlantic Council Millennium Fellow and a Desmond Tutu Leadership Fellow. And in June, Peter was awarded the Crans Montana Forum's New Leader for Tomorrow by His Excellency Musa Traore, former president of Mali. You can read on this particular story here on change.org, all about Peter Biar Ajak. Let's hear from Ambassador Erastus Mwencha.
I think I can only build on what my colleagues have said. You cannot hold peace on one hand and then a sword on the other. You are in the peacemaking process. You are holding people and disregarding rule of law, which is ingrained in the Constitution. For those who know Peter, and those of us who have talked to him, I really have serious, concerns at the fact that he's been there for 32 days and no charges have been preferred. The family is not even allowed to have access to him. That is contrary. I mean, if you look at what has happened between US and Turkey, it is over. People who are allegedly, against the state were put in, and Turkey was flexing its muscles, and the US decided to pull the rug out under their feet. And you see what happened with Turkey? I think let's put pressure on South Sudan, just in the same way that Turkey was forced to relent, to say, if indeed you are genuinely seeking for peace, release all prisoners of conscience.
All right, finally, let's hear from Professor Nomi Damba.
While the Europe went through catastrophe for many, many years until the Second World War, and after that they created peace, stability, and good government, and Europe has been stable since then. The question is whether it is Riek Machar or Salva Kiir and all these people, they are not going to stop their own war unless there is consequences. Consequences of AU membership and expected behavior, IGAD membership, the East Africa community. We cannot accept this. And the moment these people are going to begin to understand the pressure surrounding them, the better they are going to behave. Because the young people are unsettled, like Peter, and they are not going to settle until good governance is created that will engineer the country development into the future.
Right, thank you.